Evelyn Carter lived a life that many people dreamed of. Her house was big and beautiful, sitting on a quiet hill just outside Chicago. It had tall ceilings, shiny floors, and expensive furniture. She owned a successful business, and her days were filled with meetings, phone calls, and decisions that made her company grow even bigger. To most people, Evelyn seemed to have everything: money, success, and a loving husband named Ryan Bennett. But things weren't as perfect as they looked. Ryan had been Evelyn's college sweetheart. They met when they were young, full of dreams and hope for the future. Back then, Ryan was funny, charming, and kind. He supported Evelyn as she worked hard to build her career. But over time, something changed. As Evelyn's business grew, so did her fame and wealth. People started to notice her more than they noticed Ryan. At first, he tried to be happy for her, but deep down, he felt jealous. He began to resent the fact that his wife was more successful than him. Things got worse when Ryan started working at a new job. His boss was strict and his co-workers were competitive. Ryan didn't like feeling small or unimportant. One day he met Natalie Hayes, a co-worker who always seemed to know how to get what she wanted. Natalie was smart, attractive, and good at making people feel special. She noticed how unhappy Ryan was and decided to take advantage of it. Soon, they became close, not just as friends, but as something more. Natalie listened to Ryan complain about Evelyn. She nodded sympathetically when he talked about how controlling Evelyn could be with their money. "You work so hard," Natalie would say, "but does she ever appreciate you? Does she even realize how much you do for her?" These words planted seeds of doubt in Ryan's mind. He started to see Evelyn not as his partner, but as someone who held him back. One Friday evening, Evelyn came home from a long day at work. She found Ryan sitting in the living room staring at his phone. His face was tense and he barely looked up when she walked in. "Hey," Evelyn said, trying to sound cheerful. "How was your day?" Ryan shrugged. "Same old stuff," he muttered. "Nothing exciting." Evelyn sighed. Lately, conversations like this had become common. She wished they could go back to the way things used to be, but she didn't know how to fix what was broken between them. Instead of pushing the issue, she went to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of wine. When she returned, Ryan was scrolling through social media, looking at pictures of other couples who seemed happier than they were. That night after dinner, Evelyn brought up the topic of finances. She knew Ryan had been upset about their joint bank account lately. "I think we should talk about our budget," she said carefully. "Maybe we can figure out a better system that works for both of us," Ryan snapped. "A better system? You mean letting me have some control for once? Or are you just going to keep treating me like I'm useless?" Evelyn blinked, surprised by his anger. "That's not what I meant," she replied. "I just want us to be on the same page." "Well, maybe I don't want to be on your page anymore," Ryan shouted. His voice echoed through the house, making Evelyn flinch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan stood up and stormed out of the room, leaving Evelyn alone with her thoughts. The next morning, Evelyn woke up early. She needed to clear her head, so she decided to take a drive. Before leaving, she glanced at Ryan, who was still asleep in bed. She thought about waking him up to apologize, but she decided against it. Instead, she wrote him a quick note. "Let's talk later. Love, Evelyn." As she drove away from the house, she didn't notice the strange look on Ryan's face as he read the note. He crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. Then he picked up his phone and sent a text to Natalie. "It's done." What Evelyn didn't know was that Ryan had spent the previous night tampering with her car. With Natalie's encouragement, he loosened the brake lines, knowing full well what might happen if Evelyn tried to use them. He told himself it wasn't really his fault. It was Evelyn's fault for being so controlling, for making him feel invisible. Deep down, though, he knew what he was doing was wrong, but he didn't care anymore. Hours later, Evelyn's car skidded off a winding road near Lake Michigan. Witnesses called emergency services immediately, but by the time help arrived, it was too late. The car had plunged into the water, and Evelyn was nowhere to be found. News of her tragic accident spread quickly, leaving everyone shocked and heartbroken. Ryan played the part of the grieving husband perfectly. He cried during interviews, hugged Evelyn's sister Lily, and thanked friends for their support. Behind closed doors, however, he celebrated. With Evelyn gone, all of her wealth belonged to him. And with Natalie by his side, he felt freer than he had in years. But what Ryan didn't know was that Evelyn wasn't dead. Her body had been pulled from the lake by a mysterious group that specialized in saving lives and giving people second chances. They erased her identity and promised to protect her until she was ready to return. For now, Evelyn rested in secret, unaware of the storm brewing in her absence. Little did Ryan and Natalie know, their betrayal wouldn't go unpunished forever. Somewhere far away, Evelyn was watching and waiting. The day of Evelyn's funeral was cold and gray, matching the mood of everyone who gathered to say goodbye. Friends, family members, and colleagues filed into the cemetery slowly, their heads bowed as they approached the open grave. Above them, thick clouds blocked out the sun, casting long shadows across the ground. The air smelled faintly of rain, though no drops fell yet. Everyone wore black and many carried bouquets of flowers, white roses, lilies, and orchids, to lay near the casket. Ryan Bennett stood near the front of the crowd, his face blank except for the occasional tear that rolled down his cheek. He clutched a tissue in one hand and leaned slightly on Natalie Hayes, who stood beside him pretending to grieve. She dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, but anyone watching closely could see the way she smirked when no one was looking. Her presence made people uncomfortable. After all, she wasn't family, or even a close friend. Still, Ryan had insisted she come, claiming she'd been a great support during this difficult time. Lily, Evelyn's younger sister, sat in the front row, clutching a photo of her and Evelyn together. They had always been close, and losing her felt like losing a piece of herself. Lily couldn't stop thinking about how unfair it all was. Evelyn had worked so hard to build her life only for it to end in such a sudden, tragic way. As the priest spoke softly about Evelyn's kindness and generosity, Lily tried to hold back her tears, but they came anyway, streaming down her face, without stopping. Behind her, other mourners whispered among themselves. Some talked about how shocking Evelyn's death had been, while others shared memories of happier times. One older woman recalled how Evelyn used to bake cookies for charity events, always making sure there were enough for everyone. Another man mentioned how she'd helped him start his own business years ago, offering advice and connections when he needed them most. These stories painted a picture of a woman who gave endlessly to those around her, a woman whose loss left a gaping hole in the community, but not everyone was sincere. Near the back of the group, Ryan and Natalie exchanged quiet words whenever the priest paused. At first, their conversation seemed innocent enough, just two people sharing thoughts about Evelyn's legacy. But soon, their tone shifted. Natalie leaned closer to Ryan, her voice barely audible over the wind. "You did what you had to do," she murmured, brushing her fingers against his arm. "Now we can finally move forward." Ryan hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Then he nodded, forcing a sad smile onto his face as if nothing unusual had happened. To the casual observer, they appeared to be comforting each other. But if someone had looked closer, they might have noticed the flicker of guilt in Ryan's eyes, or the smug satisfaction in Natalie's. Meanwhile, far away from the cemetery, Evelyn Carter sat in a dimly lit room staring at a screen. She wasn't dead, at least not anymore. After being pulled from the lake, she had been taken to a secret facility run by an organization known only as the Second Chance Initiative. They specialized in reviving individuals whose deaths had been staged or accidental, giving them the tools to rebuild their lives. For Evelyn, this meant starting over completely, leaving behind everything she once knew. On the monitor in front of her, live footage of the funeral played. Cameras hidden throughout the venue captured every detail: the mourners' expressions, the placement of flowers, and even the whispers between Ryan and Natalie. Watching it all unfold made Evelyn feel sick. She saw the pain on Lily's face and wished she could tell her sister the truth. But she also saw Ryan and Natalie's behavior, their casual disregard for the gravity of the situation. It made her blood boil. "They're disgusting," Evelyn muttered under her breath, gripping the edge of the desk. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Green nodded silently. He was the leader of the organization, a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. His job was to guide people like Evelyn through their recovery, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. "You'll get your chance," Dr. Green said calmly, "but you need to be patient. Revenge won't solve anything unless it's done right." Evelyn sighed, knowing he was right. Still, it was hard to stay calm when she saw Ryan standing there, acting like he cared about her memory. And then there was Natalie, playing the role of the grieving friend while secretly celebrating her victory. Evelyn wanted to scream, to march into the cemetery and expose them both for the liars they were. But she couldn't. Not yet. As the service continued, the priest invited a few people to share their thoughts about Evelyn. One by one, they stepped up to speak, their voices trembling with emotion. A childhood friend talked about how kind Evelyn had always been, even when others treated her poorly. A former employee described her as a boss who truly cared about her team, going above and beyond to help them succeed. Each story added another layer to the portrait of a woman who had touched countless lives. When it was Ryan's turn to speak, he walked slowly to the podium, his head bowed. For a moment, he looked genuinely heartbroken, his voice cracking as he began to talk. "Evelyn was my best friend, my partner, my everything," he said, pausing to wipe his eyes. "I don't know how I'm going to live without her." Evelyn clenched her fists as she watched him perform. She knew exactly how he planned to live, off her money with Natalie by his side. She thought about all the nights they'd spent together, dreaming about the future. Now those dreams were ashes, burned away by Ryan's greed and betrayal. By the time the service ended, the sky had grown darker, and a light drizzle began to fall. People lingered for a while, hugging each other and exchanging condolences before heading home. Ryan and Natalie stayed until the very end, waiting until the casket was lowered into the ground. As they turned to leave, Natalie slipped her hand into Ryan's, squeezing it gently. "It's over," she whispered. "We won." Unbeknownst to them, Evelyn was watching their every move. Her mind raced with plans and possibilities. She didn't know how long it would take, but she vowed to return stronger than ever. Ryan and Natalie thought they'd gotten away with murder, but they were wrong. Evelyn was alive and she wasn't going to let them forget it. For now, though, she had to bide her time. With Dr. Green's guidance, she began preparing for the battle ahead. She trained her body, sharpened her mind, and plotted her next steps, carefully. Revenge wouldn't come easily, but Evelyn was determined to make it happen. After all, she had nothing left to lose, and everything to gain. Evelyn Carter, or rather Claire Monroe as she now called herself, spent months preparing for her return. Her new life began in a secret facility hidden deep within the woods, far from prying eyes. The building was cold and sterile, filled with advanced technology that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. It wasn't luxurious or comfortable, but Evelyn didn't care. All she wanted was to get stronger, smarter, and ready to face the people who had betrayed her. Dr. Marcus Green became both her mentor and guide during this time. Every morning, Evelyn woke up early and followed a strict schedule designed to rebuild her physically and mentally. She started with workouts, running on treadmills, lifting weights, and practicing martial arts. At first, her body struggled to keep up. After spending so much time recovering from the accident, she felt weak and uncoordinated. But Dr. Green pushed her relentlessly, reminding her why she was there. "You're not just fighting for yourself," he told her one day after a particularly grueling session. "You're fighting for justice, for closure. Don't give up." Evelyn nodded, wiping sweat from her forehead. She knew he was right. Each punch, each kick, brought her closer to reclaiming what was hers. Slowly but surely, her strength returned, and with it came a newfound confidence. She learned how to defend herself against attackers, how to move silently, and how to anticipate danger before it struck. By the end of her physical training, Evelyn could hold her own in any situation, but physical strength wasn't enough. Dr. Green also taught her skills that went beyond fighting. He introduced her to the world of hacking, showing her how to access secure systems and uncover hidden information. At first, Evelyn found it overwhelming. Computers had never been her strong suit, and staring at lines of code made her head spin. But Dr. Green was patient, explaining everything step by step until she understood. Soon she could navigate databases with ease, finding exactly what she needed in seconds. One of the most important lessons Evelyn learned was patience. Dr. Green emphasized that rushing into things would only lead to mistakes. Revenge isn't about acting on impulse, he said. It's about planning, timing, and precision. You need to wait for the perfect moment to strike. To help her practice these skills, Dr. Green set up simulations where Evelyn had to solve puzzles under pressure. Sometimes she succeeded, other times she failed. But every failure taught her something new, making her sharper and more determined. Over time, Evelyn transformed into someone completely different from the woman Ryan and Natalie thought they had killed. She was no longer just Evelyn Carter, the successful entrepreneur. She was Claire Monroe, a force to be reckoned with. Despite her progress, Evelyn struggled with guilt. Leaving behind her old life meant cutting ties with everyone she loved, including her sister Lily. She missed Lily terribly, especially on quiet nights when memories of their childhood flooded back. They used to bake cookies together, giggle over silly jokes, and dream about the future. Now Evelyn couldn't even call her without risking exposure. The thought of Lily grieving for her broke Evelyn's heart, but she reminded herself that staying away was necessary. For now. Dr. Green noticed her sadness and offered some advice. "You can't change the past," he said gently. "But you can shape the future. When the time is right, you'll find a way to reconnect with her. Until then, focus on your mission." As weeks turned into months, Evelyn grew restless. She was eager to leave the facility and confront Ryan and Natalie, but Dr. Green insisted she wasn't ready yet. "You need to blend in," he explained. "If you walk back into your old life too soon, they'll recognize you immediately. We need to create a new identity for you, one that won't raise suspicion." With that goal in mind, Evelyn worked on perfecting her disguise. She dyed her blonde hair dark brown, cut it into a sleek bob, and wore glasses to alter her appearance. Her wardrobe changed too. Instead of designer dresses and heels, she opted for simple blazers, jeans, and boots. Even her mannerisms shifted, slightly. Gone was the confident businesswoman who commanded attention in every room. In her place stood Claire Monroe, a quiet, unassuming freelance consultant who preferred to stay in the background. Finally, the day came when Dr. Green declared, "Evelyn ready." He handed her a folder containing all the details of her new identity, along with instructions for her first assignment. "Remember," he said, "this isn't just about vengeance. It's about exposing the truth. Let the world see Ryan and Natalie for who they really are." Evelyn nodded, clutching the folder tightly. She felt a mix of excitement and fear as she prepared to leave the facility for the first time in months. The outside world seemed brighter, louder, and more chaotic than she remembered. But she reminded herself of her purpose. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, and she had a score to settle. Her first task was to infiltrate Ryan's social circle. Using her skills as Claire, she attended networking events and charity galas where Ryan often appeared. At first, she kept her distance, observing him from afar. He looked different without her money funding his lifestyle. His suits were less expensive, his watch less flashy. Still, he carried himself with the same arrogance that had always annoyed Evelyn. Natalie was harder to read. She played her role perfectly, smiling politely and laughing at all the right moments. To outsiders, she seemed like a charming, supportive partner. But Evelyn saw through her act. She noticed the way Natalie leaned into Ryan whenever someone important was nearby, the way she subtly steered conversations to make herself look good. It was all calculated, just like everything else Natalie did. Over time, Evelyn grew bolder. She introduced herself to Ryan and Natalie under the guise of being a potential client, interested in investing in their projects. Both of them welcomed her warmly, eager to impress. Evelyn took advantage of their hospitality, gathering bits of information here and there. She asked casual questions about their plans, their finances, and their relationships. Each answer gave her a clearer picture of their lives and their vulnerabilities. At night, Evelyn returned to a small apartment Dr. Green had arranged for her. It was nothing like her old mansion, but it served its purpose. She spent hours reviewing the data she had collected, piecing together clues and forming strategies. One evening, while scrolling through Ryan's emails, which she had hacked into, she stumbled upon something shocking. Messages between Ryan and Natalie discussing her accident. They joked about how easy it had been, how no one suspected a thing. Reading those words filled Evelyn with rage, but also clarity. She realized that Ryan and Natalie weren't just greedy. They were dangerous. If they could kill once, they wouldn't hesitate to do it again. That knowledge strengthened her resolve. She couldn't let them continue living as if nothing had happened. Someone had to stop them, and that someone was her. As days passed, Evelyn grew closer to executing her plan. She reached out to Lily using an anonymous email account, sending cryptic messages hinting at her survival. At first, Lily dismissed them as spam, but eventually curiosity got the better of her. She began responding, asking questions Evelyn carefully answered without revealing too much. Through these exchanges, Evelyn managed to convince Lily that she was still alive, though she couldn't explain everything just yet. With Lily's help, Evelyn devised a strategy to expose Ryan and Natalie publicly. It wouldn't be easy, but Evelyn was ready. She had trained for this moment, prepared for every possible outcome. As she sat alone in her apartment one night staring at photos of Ryan and Natalie on her laptop, she smiled faintly. They thought they were safe, that they had won. But Evelyn knew better. The game was far from over, and she intended to play it on her terms. Evelyn, now going by Claire Monroe, had spent weeks infiltrating Ryan and Natalie's world. She attended every event they did, mingled with their friends, and subtly inserted herself into their conversations. To everyone else, she was just another face in the crowd, a potential business partner or investor. But to Evelyn, each interaction was a step closer to exposing the truth. The charity gala was her next big move. It was one of the most prestigious events of the season, held in a grand hotel downtown. Guests arrived in limousines wearing designer gowns and expensive suits. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and fresh flower arrangements. Waiters moved gracefully through the crowd, offering trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Evelyn stood near the edge of the room, sipping her drink slowly as she observed Ryan and Natalie from afar. Ryan looked uncomfortable in his rented tuxedo, constantly adjusting his tie. Natalie, on the other hand, seemed right at home. Her red hair was styled perfectly, and her emerald green gown hugged her figure tightly. She laughed loudly at something Ryan said, though Evelyn could tell it was fake. They were putting on a show, pretending to be happy and successful. What they didn't know was that Evelyn had already uncovered their secrets, and tonight, she planned to take things further. Earlier that week, Evelyn had hacked into Ryan's personal laptop again. This time she found even more damning evidence, emails between him and Natalie discussing how to cover up Evelyn's accident. There were also financial records showing large sums of money transferred from Evelyn's accounts into offshore, ones controlled by Ryan. He had been careful, but not careful enough. Evelyn downloaded everything onto a secure drive, making sure she had all the proof she needed. Now, standing in the middle of the gala, Evelyn felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She knew what she had to do, but timing was crucial. She couldn't confront Ryan and Natalie directly, not yet. Instead, she decided to plant seeds of doubt among their peers first. If people started questioning their story, it would make her eventual reveal even more powerful. She approached a group of businessmen who were chatting near the bar. One of them recognized her immediately. "Claire, isn't it?" he asked, smiling warmly. "I hear you're interested in renewable energy projects." Evelyn nodded, keeping her tone casual. Yes, I'm exploring some opportunities. Actually, I wanted to ask you about Ryan Bennett. I've heard conflicting things about him lately. The men exchanged glances, intrigued. Like what? One of them asked. Well, Evelyn said, lowering her voice slightly. Some people say his wife's death wasn't entirely accidental. And then there's the matter of her estate. Have you noticed how quickly he's been spending her money? Men frowned, clearly surprised by her words. That's an interesting point, one of them muttered. I'll have to look into it. Satisfied, Evelyn excused herself and moved on to another group. Over the course of the evening, she repeated similar conversations with different people, dropping hints about Ryan's questionable behavior. By the end of the night, whispers were spreading throughout the room. Some guests glanced suspiciously at Ryan and Natalie, wondering if there was any truth to what they'd heard. Meanwhile, Evelyn kept a close eye on Ryan and Natalie. They seemed oblivious to the growing tension around them. Natalie leaned against Ryan playfully, twirling a strand of her hair. "This is going so well," she murmured. "Everyone loves us." Ryan smirked, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Of course they do. We're irresistible." Evelyn clenched her fists, resisting the urge to march over and slap the smug looks off their faces. Instead, she focused on the bigger picture. Her plan was working, slowly but surely. She was turning the tide against them. After the gala ended, Evelyn returned to her apartment and reviewed the footage she had secretly recorded during the event. She had placed tiny cameras in strategic locations, capturing Ryan and Natalie's interactions with others. Combined with the evidence she had gathered earlier, it was enough to destroy them. But Evelyn knew she couldn't act rashly. She needed Lily's help to make her final move. The next morning, Evelyn sent Lily another coded message. "It's almost time," she wrote. "Meet me tomorrow at the coffee shop near your office. Bring your laptop," Lily responded quickly. "Are you sure about this? What if someone sees us?" "Trust me," Evelyn replied. "I'll explain everything when we meet." True to her word, Evelyn met Lily the following day. They sat in a quiet corner of the cafe, away from prying eyes. Evelyn slid a USB drive across the table. "Everything you need is on here," she said softly. "Videos, emails, bank statements, enough to prove what Ryan and Natalie did." Lily stared at the drive, her hands trembling. "You really are alive," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I couldn't risk it," Evelyn admitted. "But now I need your help. You're the only person I can trust." Lily nodded, wiping her tears. "What do you want me to do?" "Spread the word," Evelyn instructed. "Share the files with journalists, lawyers, anyone who can amplify the story. Make sure the whole world knows what Ryan and Natalie did." Lily hesitated for a moment, then nodded firmly. "Okay, I'll do it." With Lily's support secured, Evelyn finalized her own part of the plan. She booked tickets to attend another high-profile event hosted by one of Evelyn's former business partners. It was the perfect stage for her comeback, a place where Ryan and Natalie would least expect her to appear. On the night of the event, Evelyn arrived early, blending seamlessly into the crowd. She wore a simple black dress, her hair styled neatly, and carried herself with quiet confidence. No one paid much attention to her as she took a seat near the front of the room. Soon the lights dimmed, and the host stepped onto the stage to introduce the evening's presentations. As expected, Ryan and Natalie were seated near the center of the audience. They looked relaxed, chatting idly with those around them. Evelyn watched them closely, waiting for her moment. When the host announced a surprise video montage celebrating Evelyn's contributions to the industry, she smiled faintly. She had arranged this part herself, ensuring the footage included clips of her achievements and a few carefully edited scenes hinting at Ryan's betrayal. The screen flickered to life, displaying photos and videos of Evelyn's career highlights. The audience clapped politely, but their reactions changed when the tone shifted. Suddenly, incriminating messages between Ryan and Natalie appeared on the screen, followed by security footage of Ryan tampering with Evelyn's car. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the truth unfolded before their eyes. Ryan shot to his feet, his face pale. "What is this?" he demanded, looking around wildly. "Who did this?" Before he could react further, Evelyn stood up, removing her glasses and letting her hair fall loose. For a moment, silence filled the room as everyone stared at her in shock. Then, stepping forward, she addressed the crowd calmly but firmly. "I'm not dead," she declared, her voice steady. "And neither is my reputation." Pandemic erupted as guests turned on Ryan and Natalie, shouting accusations and demanding answers. Police officers stationed nearby, alerted earlier by Lily, moved in to arrest the pair. As Ryan screamed denials, Evelyn felt a sense of closure wash over her. Justice had finally been served. The night Evelyn revealed herself at the high-profile gala marked the beginning of Ryan and Natalie's downfall. The footage she had prepared left no room for doubt. Every lie they had told, every secret they had kept, was laid bare for everyone to see. As police officers cuffed them and led them away, the crowd erupted into chaos. Some people shouted angrily, while others whispered in disbelief. Evelyn stood tall amidst it all, her heart pounding, but her resolve unshaken. In the days that followed, news of Evelyn's survival spread like wildfire. Reporters camped outside her apartment building, desperate for an interview. Social media buzzed with theories and reactions, as people struggled to process what had happened. Lily worked tirelessly behind the scenes, sharing the evidence Evelyn had gathered with trusted journalists and lawyers. Together, they ensured the story reached as many people as possible, forcing authorities to take action. Ryan and Nate were charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and multiple counts of perjury. Their trial became one of the most talked about cases in Chicago's history. Every detail of their betrayal was dissected in court, from the tampered brakes on Evelyn's car to the stolen funds hidden in offshore accounts. Evelyn attended every hearing, sitting quietly in the front row as witnesses testified against the pair. During the trial, Evelyn's lawyer presented overwhelming evidence proving Ryan and Natalie's guilt. Security camera footage showed Ryan loosening the brake lines of Evelyn's car. Emails exchanged between him and Natalie detailed their plan to stage her death. Financial records exposed how they had funneled Evelyn's wealth into their own pockets. Each piece of evidence painted a clear picture of greed and deceit. When it came time for Evelyn to testify, the courtroom fell silent. She walked slowly to the stand, her steps steady and deliberate. As she recounted the events leading up to her death, her voice remained calm, though her words carried immense weight. She described the argument with Ryan, the feeling of helplessness after realizing someone had sabotaged her car, and the shock of waking up in the secret facility. Her testimony struck a chord with everyone present, including the jury. "I didn't just lose my life that day," Evelyn said, looking directly at Ryan and Natalie. "I lost trust, love, and everything I thought we shared. But I'm here now, and I won't let them get away with what they've done." Her words resonated deeply, not only with the jury but also with those watching the trial on television or online. Public opinion turned sharply against Ryan and Natalie, who sat silently at the defense table, their faces pale and drawn. They tried to defend themselves, claiming they had been manipulated by circumstances or forced into making bad decisions. But their excuses rang hollow in the face of undeniable proof. As the trial progressed, Evelyn began rebuilding her life outside the courtroom. With the help of her legal team, she regained control of her assets, which had been frozen during the investigation. She sold the mansion she once shared with Ryan. It held too many painful memories, and purchased a smaller home closer to Lily. The house was cozy and warm, filled with sunlight and laughter. It felt like a fresh start, a place where she could heal and rediscover who she truly was. Lily played a crucial role in Evelyn's recovery. The sisters spent hours talking late into the night, catching up on everything they had missed during Evelyn's absence. Lily admitted she had always suspected something was wrong with Ryan but never imagined it would go this far. Evelyn reassured her that none of it was her fault, and together they vowed to move forward stronger than ever. Despite her progress, Evelyn still faced challenges. Adjusting to her new reality wasn't easy. Sometimes, she woke up in the middle of the night, haunted by memories of the crash or the months she spent recovering in secrecy. Other times she found herself questioning whether she could ever fully trust anyone again. But she reminded herself of how far she had come and focused on the positives: her freedom, her renewed relationship with Lily, and the justice she had fought so hard to achieve. The trial finally reached its conclusion after weeks of intense hearings. The jury deliberated for 2 days before delivering their verdict: guilty on all charges. Ryan and Natalie were sentenced to decades in prison without parole. When the judge announced the decision, Evelyn felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about closure. For the first time in years, she felt free. After the sentencing, Evelyn stepped out of the courthouse into bright sunlight. A throng of reporters waited outside, eager for her reaction. Instead of giving a lengthy statement, she simply smiled and said, "Justice has been served. Now I can focus on rebuilding my life." Over the following months, Evelyn dedicated herself to helping others who had experienced similar betrayals. She partnered with organizations that supported victims of domestic abuse and financial exploitation, using her story to raise awareness and inspire change. She also reconnected with old friends and colleagues, mending relationships damaged by Ryan's lies. One evening, as she sat on the porch of her new home, Evelyn reflected on everything that had happened. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, but she was ready to face whatever came her way. She had survived betrayal, loss, and pain, and emerged stronger because of it. For the first time in a long time, Evelyn felt hopeful. She glanced at Lily, who was laughing inside the house with a glass of wine in hand, and smiled softly. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and she intended to make the most of it. Months passed after Ryan and Natalie's sentencing, and Evelyn Carter began to rebuild her life piece by piece. The trials and hardships she had endured were still fresh in her mind, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they served as reminders of how strong she had become and how much she valued the people who truly mattered. Evelyn decided to focus on what brought her joy and purpose. She sold off parts of her old business empire, keeping only the ventures that aligned with her passions. One of these was a small foundation dedicated to helping women escape abusive relationships and regain their independence. Evelyn poured her energy into expanding its reach, partnering with shelters, legal aid groups, and counseling services across the country. Her own experience had taught her the importance of support systems, and she wanted to ensure others wouldn't have to face betrayal or hardship alone. Lily remained Evelyn's closest ally during this time. Their bond grew stronger than ever, built on honesty and mutual understanding. They spent weekends together cooking meals, taking long walks, and reminiscing about happier times. Lily often joked that Evelyn's second chance made her appreciate family even more, and Evelyn couldn't agree more. For years, she had prioritized work and wealth over personal connections, but now she realized those relationships were what truly mattered. Evelyn also reconnected with old friends, people who had genuinely cared about her before the chaos with Ryan and Natalie unfolded. Some had drifted away during her marriage, unsure how to navigate the growing distance between them. But when Evelyn reached out, explaining everything she had been through, they welcomed her back with open arms. These friendships reminded her of the kindness and loyalty that existed in the world, even amidst betrayal and greed. Her new home became a sanctuary, a place where she could reflect, recharge, and dream again. It wasn't as grand as the mansion she once shared with Ryan, but it felt like hers in a way the other never did. The cozy living room was filled with books, plants, and photos of loved ones. The kitchen smelled of fresh coffee every morning, and the balcony offered stunning views of the city skyline. On quiet evenings, Evelyn liked to sit outside, watching the sun dip below the horizon and painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Despite her progress, there were moments when Evelyn struggled. Memories of the crash would occasionally surface, leaving her shaken Sometimes she caught herself second-guessing whether someone new in her life might betray her too. But instead of letting fear control her, she leaned on Dr. Marcus Green's advice. Trust is earned, not given freely. She learned to take things slowly, observing people's actions rather than rushing to judgment based on appearances. One day, while attending a charity event for her foundation, Evelyn ran into an old colleague named Alex. He had worked alongside her briefly years ago, and they had always gotten along well. Alex greeted her warmly, expressing admiration for everything she had accomplished since returning to public life. They ended up talking for hours, sharing stories about their careers, families, and dreams for the future. It felt natural, comfortable, even fun. Over time, Evelyn and Alex began meeting regularly for coffee or dinner. There was no pressure, no rush to define their relationship. They simply enjoyed each other's company, rediscovering common interests and building something genuine. For Evelyn, it was refreshing to connect with someone who respected her boundaries and understood the weight of her past, without dwelling on it. Meanwhile, Evelyn maintained contact with Dr. Marcus Green and his team. Though she no longer needed their protection, she appreciated their guidance and occasional check-ins. In return, she offered her expertise whenever they asked for help with cases involving others seeking justice or redemption. It gave her a sense of purpose beyond her personal journey, a way to pay forward the second chance she had been given. As months turned into years, Evelyn's life settled into a rhythm of balance and fulfillment. She continued running her foundation, supporting causes close to her heart, and nurturing the relationships that meant the most to her. Her reputation as a resilient survivor inspired many, proving that even in the darkest moments there is always hope for renewal. On one particularly peaceful evening, Evelyn stood on her balcony, looking out at the glittering city below. She thought about how far she had come, from the depths of betrayal and despair to a place of strength and contentment. She thought about Ryan and Natalie, rotting away in prison, and realized she didn't feel anger anymore. What she felt was gratitude, for surviving, for learning, and for finding meaning in the aftermath of tragedy. Behind her, the sound of laughter spilled out from the living room, where Lily and Alex were chatting animatedly over dessert. Evelyn smiled softly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Life wasn't perfect, it never would be, but it was hers to shape and cherish. Turning back toward the view, Evelyn whispered quietly to herself, "I'm ready." And with that, she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The night stretched, ahead full of possibilities and promise. Whatever came next, Evelyn knew she could handle it. After all, she had already faced the worst and emerged victorious.